about the need for speed. I mean, it's almost a year since the New Urban Agenda was adopted, and we are still talking about the, in a way, structural ramifications for implementation before we even getting to the implementation. And at the same time, as you have pointed out, the clock on the SDGs in general is already ticking. We're already 2 years into implementation, so speed in a way is of the essence, and I think that's an appeal to us at the UN and the member states to have a successful conclusion of the conversation so that implementation really can start rolling. Maria, there were comments here also to the role of women, to the role of human rights, to the role of in a way, that part of inclusion that you were also speaking to. Any reaction from you and more general?
In my view, it's very important that the United Nations creates this space for dialogue and exchange, and essentially that we really do need to think about creating a mechanism which will allow us all to work together, which will allow local governments and civil societies from these cities to work together in a forum which allows us to interact and contribute our experience to progress. And all of that needs to take place within a process which strengthens UN habitat. I'd just like to recall a number of things which to me are crucial. We cannot cease to urge states to ratify international human rights treaties. That work, those appeals must continue. Those old mechanisms are still very relevant. They've got a great deal to offer still, because the technical mechanisms within the United Nations system have been changing, improving. They've gained moral and legal authority over time, and they still call attention to the fact that and I would draw attention to the fact that many important states in the world have still not ratified many of these treaties. My region, Latin America, is the region in the world that has ratified most of these treaties, and often when we try to defend the rights to education, healthcare, rights to housing in a city, or when we try to ensure that migrants are not discriminated against, we draw upon those treaties, and the judiciary needs to apply these treaties as if they were part of domestic law. So for us, it's very important to call upon governments and states to reform their constitutions, to include more participatory mechanisms, to include international human rights treaties into the constitution, to give them constitutional status, as many Latin American countries have done. And of course, if I just go back to a number of comments that a number of other participants have made, in my view, it's very important in the design process to work on dialogue, to ensure that we have dialogue where all voices are heard. If you are to ensure success with town planning, what you really need to ensure is that happiness of citizens is ensured, and happiness of citizens and that they're able to live well are the real benchmarks of successful town planning. There are things that can't be bought, and we see that on a daily basis. We need citizens that are happy. And to have that happiness, we need towns that are designed for us and that prevent disasters rather than being resilient following them. And so it's very important to ensure that as part of these partnerships, part of these public-private partnerships, the rules of the game are clear and goals are clear. So we can't always prioritize economic interest. Protecting economic interest is not always compatible with ensuring people live well. Of course, there's no doubt that great change needs to be undertaken within societies. There has to be more sustainable transport. We have to change our energy mix, ensure there's more renewable energies used within cities, and here there will be important business opportunities for many people in the private sector. But as Manuela was saying, we also need more clear rules and better regulation, better legislation which governs public works, better legislation which governs public services. When you prioritize public services, there needs to be proper regulation which avoid monopolies. And we need to ensure that users or consumers are protected. We are the people that live in citizens, and we need to think about what power we have when decisions are made on tolls, tariffs, transport systems, prices, and that's where citizen participation comes into play. When I'm talking about citizens, I'm not talking about the people that have political rights. The concept of citizenship that we defend is that of citizenship, the concept of citizenship which is human rights based. Citizenship that we're talking about is a universal form of citizenship. Everybody has rights, everyone has the right to all rights, and that's what we believe is citizenship. That's a concept that we have passionately defended since the very inception of the concept of inclusive cities, of cities which care for people that live in them. So that's our concept of citizenship. Thank you.
Maria.